edition of Ultrasound. After 16 years in the music business, 1996 found Metallica ready to set speed aside, cut their hair, and blast the Billboard charts with a mellower dose of metal called Load. Soon after, they ushered in Metalpalooza and a world tour, then took aim at Reload, an album comprised of unfinished material from Load. And once again, they scored another bullseye on the Billboard charts.
We have a desire to keep pushing the boundaries, and the only thing that will limit us will be our own imaginations.
Over 9 million albums later, Ultrasound takes you inside the studio during the prolific sessions that introduced fans to the new Metallica, Locked and Loaded.
I think a lot of bands, without knowing it, kind of dig themselves too much of a rut. They're just a little afraid to expand or to take a step forward. I don't think we've ever been afraid of that.
There's a certain dynamic between the four of us that seems to, like, keep the spark alive.
The thing that has kept Metallica going so long, and it's kind of been our secret, I mean, is how, you know, everybody's always wants to be there for the other three guys. Nobody ever wants to let the other three guys down.
We get older, and that's okay. We change, and that's okay, as long as it's natural.
Metallica has always been the thinking dudes metal band, punky but intricate too. Early Metallica tracks, in fact, were so fiendishly multi-metered the guys themselves could barely keep up in concert. But that's history.
The song's real raw in terms of just has like two guitars, drums and bass, a couple of vocal effects and stuff like that.
Whereas the rest of the album ranges over many stylistic strategies, right?
Well put.
I like that one. That's a pretty good one.
Well put there, Kurt.
It's like
In other words, it's a complete mess.
3, 4.
With its last album still on the Billboard Top 100 chart 5 years after its release, Metallica has stripped its surefire sound way down for an unusual new album called Load.
There was no big plan in the end on how they were all supposed to sound, so we just concentrated song by song and just let them go.
Every song evokes a certain type of mood. It's not, you know, consistently just like pounding heavy metal thunder all the way.
I think the one thing we had to do was just be looser, be more, go for attitude, go for vibe, and go for something that was more of a band sound. I think listen to some of the earlier records, it definitely sounds like the Ulrich Hetfield experience.
The Hetfield-Ulrich experience began in Los Angeles in 1981, a time when glam was king, or queen, and two young locals found themselves united in dismay, angry young singer James Hetfield and transplanted Danish drummer Lars Ulrich.
I came from Europe. I was listening to a lot of the European stuff that was going on at the time. I landed in the land of REO Speedwagon and Styx and Kansas, and I'm just going like, ah!
We loved punk music, and it just didn't have enough musicianship to it, so we basically added some.
Hetfield and Ulrich hooked up with Dave Mustaine, a speed demon guitarist with a major mouth, and brought in bassist Ron McGovney to form the maiden lineup of Metallica in October 1981.
People came to our gigs not knowing what they were expecting. They'd come to that club no matter what, just to hang with their friends and see who's, you know, looking prettier, you know, that night. And we got very annoyed with that, and we'd sing louder and play faster, and that's kind of how I think it helped develop our style.
So Metallica was working, but something was lacking in the band's lineup, and while watching another group at the famous Whiskey one night, they discovered what it was, bassist Cliff Burton.
So we saw this big mop going, and, you know, we had this wah going, and, you know, fingers and hair were flying, and we just thought that was so cool and so unique, and we had to have the guy.
He really had been studying music at a college up in San Francisco and stuff, and really started introducing James and me to things like harmonies and melodies and stuff like that.
My name is Donna Davis, and I'm here with Metallica, the hot new heavy metal band from L.A. And let's have them start with their name and what they do in the band. And let's start with you.
James Hetfield, rhythm guitar and vocals.
Lars Ulrich, drums and punk.
Dave Mustaine, lead guitar. Cliff Burton, bass guitar.
By this point, Dave Mustaine's enthusiasm for cocktails was driving his bandmates nuts. So after securing a record deal and heading for New York to make their first album with metal promoter Johnny Z, they decided to take action.
As soon as we got to New York, it's like, hi, Johnny Z, or, we're Metallica, and what kind of sack? Our lead guitar player. Whoa,
In giving Dave Mustaine the axe, Hetfield and Ulrich were, shall we say, unhampered by sentiment.
We had booked him a bus ticket like 10 in the morning, and like at 9:15 or something, it's like, Dave, wake up, we got to talk. And so basically we woke him up, and he was still sort of rubbing, sleep out of his eyes. Babe, you got to go home. And then
and you got to go on a bus.
Well, yeah, Dave, you got to go home. And then the infamous, this lingers, this is like famous, this question. He goes, when does my plane leave? And Dave, well, here's part 2 of the bad news. So basically, you just got fired, and you have 4 days on a Greyhound bus clear across America to sit and revel in that.
I initially got the call on April Fool's Day, so that was an April Fool's Day joke. I was on the can.
About midnight, Kirk shows up, and he sets up his equipment.
It was actually the first time I'd ever been out of California.
Really?
Yeah. I was scared of this. And it's like New York. It's like, wow, this place is really big and dirty.
The first song we played was Seek and Destroy, and we got to the guitar solo, and 10 seconds into it, me and James just looked at each other, and that was it. Done. End of story. There was always, in harder rock, a kind of a thing about you could never stray. We've always strayed and all over the place.
On the way to somewhere, it's always the best time you can come up with lyrics. So, a paper right there ready to write away, and a little pen handy right there. Going back and forth to Lars's, and I'd be late going there. Stop at Wendy's. I'd be eating a burger, talking on the phone, and writing down lyrics.
What's on your mind writing-wise these days? What are the themes of some of these songs?
Themes lyrically?
Yeah.
Vagueness. I don't want to really give any preconceptions, but it's more deep, personal stuff. It's. I had to kind of go visit some kind of messed up places within where I thought, well, I'm all better now. I don't have to write that kind of crap anymore. But once you're messed up, you're
A lot of those old records were so thematic, and there was all these visuals and all these major, almost, messages and all this kind of heavy-duty political stuff. And we really got kind of bored with that. And I think at the same time, James felt more comfortable opening up and letting some of his really innermost bizarre stuff out.
I just wish that people would just go past, what they think Metallica is about, heavy metal, thunder and lightning, Satan, and listen to the music.
There was always, in harder rock, a kind of a thing about you could never stray. We've always strayed and all over the place.
Metallica started straying on its second album, Ride the Lightning. The band had signed with new management and a new major label, and it wasn't about to start bowing down before the usual hard and fast metal stereotypes.
In 1984, when we put a ballad, Fade to Black, on our second record, people were freaking, okay? And we just said, right there, this is how it's going to be. There are no parameters that keep us in.
Releasing its third album, Master of Puppets, in 1986, Metallica embarked on a career-changing tour with metal god Ozzy Osbourne. The Puppets album rose to number 29 on the Billboard chart, and with this success, the band soon found itself answering to the inevitable charge of selling out.
We do what we want to do, you know. If they consider that selling out, then whatever.
Metallica's success was unique in that rock radio gave the group zip in the way of airplay.
Radio didn't want us, and it was, I mean, we kept, you know, sending them tapes.
As for the hot new promotional medium of music video, well, Metallica dismissed it as lame.
Oh, you had like these guys playing, and then they'd have all these girls in bikinis, you know, prancing all around. That became like a rock standard for a while, and we didn't want anything to do with that.
Metallica was also fighting the popular image of metal itself, of a dark cult genre devoted to death and Satanism, music for losers.
You say one more thing about Metallica, I'm going to slam you in the nads.
Yeah. Go on with your bad self, Beavis.
A ton of bad luck struck Metallica itself on September 27, 1986. While touring Europe, the band's bus skidded off an icy road, and bassist Cliff Burton was killed.
Did the band think at any time like maybe we should take 6 months off?
No, we knew that if we did that, we'd probably start wallowing in our grief and depression. So we thought, we unanimously decided that we should just keep on working.
Double-edged sword of that was that it was like whoever we got in the band would be at the receiving end of torment and torture and for years to come, just because he was the replacement for Cliff.
That lucky man turned out to be Metallica fan Jason Newsted, plucked from the lineup of a Phoenix band called Flotsam and Jetsam.
Hey, let's go.
Because he was in the mix, now he thinks we have to wait for him.
Okay, guys. Looking back on it, the first couple of years were rough. Actually, the first couple of years and couple of years were pretty rough.
When they wanted to be ugly, they were ugly, and didn't really, you know, that was just that.
You didn't beat him up or anything, did you?
No, we didn't beat him up. Well, mentally we beat him up. But, I mean, come on, you know, he walked off the street into a dream situation, so we had to let him know that it's not this easy, brother.
I had to really keep a straight head professional. I really had to see further, you know. I had to like look beyond all these kind of things, these bumps and these curves and obstacles. I really had to look beyond that. There were a lot of them in the beginning.
It's come a long way, and I think in a bizarre way, this is the most we've ever been a band right now.
What is democracy?
It's got something to do with young men killing each other, I think.
In 1988, Metallica released a new album, And Justice for All, mounted a worldwide tour, and finally came up with a video concept they liked. The story of a young man who goes off to war and comes back a vegetable.
I can remember sitting on the couch, and one would come on, and then afterwards, the DJ would say, well, on a lighter note, we have... and I knew we had touched a chord.
And Justice for All was nominated for a Grammy Award, although it famously lost out to Jethro Tull of all acts. But the critical tide was turning, as even New York Times writers began hailing Metallica's complex arrangements and pointed lyrics.
Hey, look. We're in Rolling Stone, isn't that exciting? See? We made it into Rolling Stone. We peaked. Can only go down from here. I knew we had a really good record, and I knew that it was going to do well. I would never, in a zillion years, think that 5 years later it's still hovering in the top 100.
In 1990, gearing up to record its fifth album, Metallica finally found a producer the band would come to value highly, veteran studio whiz Bob Rock.
One of the first things Bob Rock ever said to me when I met him 5 or 6 years ago in Vancouver was, you guys have never made a record that sounds like you sound when you play live.
Let's don't do a yeah at the end. Do something else.
Woman, right?
Okay.
Child, fire woman.
Something's wrong, something like heavy thoughts tonight, ain't the honest way.
I think we kind of all fessed up to the fact that we just needed to bring somebody else into our tightly knit organization and work with us in the studio.
The typical Bob Rock scenario is me showing up and playing guitar, him looking at me and saying, "Come on, man." And I'll look at him and say, "What?" And he goes, "You're much better than that. Come on. You don't want to put that on an album."
Remember what I said about guitar players that don't do their homework? Remember that.
Hey man, I do my homework. I do, man. It doesn't work.
The resulting record, officially called Metallica, unofficially the Black Album, was unveiled at a fan listening party at New York's Madison Square Garden. And it was a smash, going to #1 and finally winning a Grammy Award for Best Metal Album.
Let's see, I think the first thing we got to do is, obviously, like you guys were expecting, is we got to thank Jethro Tull for not putting out an album this year, right? I knew we had a really good record, and I knew that it was going to do well. I would never, in a zillion years, think that 5 years later it's still hovering in the top 100 and selling, you know, whatever X thousand copies that we. I mean, who just bought the Black Album last week?
The longevity, that's cooler to me than being on top for 5 minutes, really, hanging out and still being relevant, and for some reason people are still buying the damn thing.
The unending popularity of the Black Album wound up keeping Metallica on the road for 2 whole grueling years.
Hey, I'm your life, I'm no one to take you there. Hey, I'm your life, I'm no one who cares.
If you at gunpoint forced me to name one gig that stands out, I'd probably say the gig we did in Moscow in 1991. This was just elevated one step more than anything I've ever seen of us, and working with an audience, and it was that whole experience was truly amazing.
After cranking out some 400 shows, the members of Metallica decided to take a whole year apart from each other before starting work on Load.
The sound on this record seems to indicate sort of a happier group. Do you feel happier than you were 15 years ago?
I don't know about happier.
Less unhappy.
Maybe.
Has the songwriting process changed?
The actual songwriting process hasn't changed that much. It's still me and James who sit with the material. It's still me and James who put the songs together, the basic arrangements, everything like that. I think this time around we ended up using more stuff of Kirk's.
And all the whitehead stones and rose like Georgia cotton.
Let's play Guess Who's Not in the Room. Bob!
Producer Bob Rock was back on board for Load, of course, and Metallica itself was a changed band, rested, mature, and operating now with a new, more democratic spirit.
It's like a band, you know? This is very weird, you know? Yeah, Lars and I back off a little and let them take a little control, you know, over their own, you know, parts.
They kind of let down the guard a little bit and maybe let a little bit more responsibility go to the other cats in the band, Kirk and myself, and let us be able to, you know, voice our opinions and really show our stuff this time.
I mean, we're really doing everything backwards. Do you know what? I mean, most people they start as a band and then a couple of guys take over and then everybody blows up. But we kind of, you know, started with a couple of guys running the show, and then it becomes a band, and now it's like a tighter thing than it's ever been before. It's kind of weird.
Not only is Load a major stylistic step for Metallica, but so is the band's choice of a venue to promote it, as headliners on the earnestly alternative Lollapalooza tour.
We're going to reach a lot of folks that we didn't before, and gain some respect from some people that we didn't before. And we're real happy with the songs. We're real proud of them, and that's going to make a big dent in a lot of people that maybe had their doubts, and that makes me happy too.
Musically, I think we're in a position right now where we could go anywhere and people would not necessarily maybe like it, but at least respect it, and I think that that's important, and at least understand that we have a desire to keep pushing the boundaries, and the only thing that will limit us will be our own imaginations.